Aloha Commanders, and welcome to Later Tonight with Dr. Iron Chef, hosted on the Aloha Dis YouTube channel.
Please be sure to follow on Twitch and subscribe on YouTube for all the latest content.
Today, we discuss the new blog post from Star Trek Fleet Command, Arena Public Squads, and Ops levels. Okay, let's unpack this. Big changes are coming to Arena. Get ready for Public Squads, where you can team up with commanders from any alliance on your server.
What's fascinating here is the potential for strategic alliances and a much wider pool of players to interact with.
Think of the possibilities.
Yeah.
And it's not just about who you team up with, it's about who you might end up facing.
Yeah. The blog post specifically mentions that you could even end up battling your own alliance mates in Arena.
Oh, wow. Get ready for some friendly fire.
Right. It'll be interesting to see how this impacts alliance dynamics. Will it spark rivalries or strengthen bonds?
I'm already picturing the trash talk in Alliance chat.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's talk about the testing phase. They're rolling this out on EU servers first, between 1 p.m. and 6 p.m. Central European Time on February 19th.
So EU commanders, you're the pioneers. The fate of Arena rests in your hands.
Be sure to share your experiences and feedback with the developers.
This is your chance to shape the future of Arena.
Now let's dive into another significant change. Along with public squads, they are also adjusting the ops level ranges.
This is huge. Instead of the current system, you'll be matched with opponents within ±4 of your own ops level.
For those who might not be familiar with ops levels, it's basically a measure of your overall strength in the game.
Right.
It determines who you're matched against in Arena.
The current system can lead to some pretty lopsided matches.
Yeah, with lower-level players getting crushed by higher-level opponents.
Exactly.
This new range aims to create more balanced and competitive matchups for everyone.
So no more getting steamrolled by players way above your level.
That's great news for newer players and those who are still building up their fleets.
Liam, the lead product manager, specifically clarified that this new ops level range will apply to both Alliance and public squads.
So whether you're teaming up with your alliance or venturing out with a public squad, you'll be facing opponents within a tighter range.
And here's where things get even more interesting. Liam also confirmed that facing alliance mates in Arena will be possible.
So get ready for some epic battles against your friends and rivals.
As someone who's always struggled in Arena, I'm really curious to see if public squads can help level the playing field. Imagine being able to team up with some of the top commanders on your server.
It could definitely shake things up. We might see the emergence of dedicated Arena squads.
Oh, like with players specializing in specific roles and strategies.
Exactly. And with the adjusted ops level ranges, we might see a shift in fleet composition.
Players might start prioritizing versatility and adaptability over sheer firepower.
It's going to be fascinating to see how the meta evolves. This update has the potential to change everything we thought we knew about Arena.
It's almost like a whole new game mode.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the immediate changes, it's also about what this means for the future of Arena.
That's right. Liam hinted at further improvements down the line, particularly regarding the speed cap.
So it seems like the developers are committed to continuously refining and enhancing the Arena experience.
Which brings us to another important point. The blog post encourages players to share their feedback on these new features.
They want to hear what you think, what's working, what's not, and what you'd like to see in the future.
This is your chance to make your voice heard.
The developers are listening. So don't be shy. Share your thoughts and help shape the future of Arena.
Now, before we move on to some of the other details in the blog post, let me ask you this. Do you think the ±4 ops level range goes far enough? Could it create new imbalances or unforeseen consequences?
That's a great question. It's certainly a step in the right direction, but it's possible that we might see new types of imbalances emerge. For example, players who are just below the cutoff point for a higher ops level might find themselves at a disadvantage against those who are just above it.
That's a good point. It's something to keep an eye on. And it highlights the importance of continuous monitoring and adjustments. The developers need to be prepared to tweak and refine the system as needed based on player feedback and data.
Absolutely. This is an ongoing process, and it's exciting to see the developers taking such an iterative and responsive approach to game development.
Speaking of data, one thing that's particularly interesting about this update is that it provides the developers with a wealth of information. They'll be able to see how these changes impact player behavior, match outcomes, and the overall Arena meta.
This data will be invaluable for future improvements. It will allow them to fine-tune the system and make Arena even more balanced and engaging.
It's like a giant experiment.
And we're all part of it. Now let's get into some of the other key takeaways from the blog post.
Public squads are server-specific, so you'll only be able to team up with players on your own server.
And for now, The day of the week for Arena won't change.
But that doesn't mean it's set in stone.
Right. They might revisit this in the future based on player feedback.
Also, team names and colors will be determined by the squad leader's alliance.
So get ready to represent your alliance colors even when playing in a public squad.
And finally, there are no immediate chat feature updates. But they are considering adding more ways for players to communicate and coordinate within public squads.
Okay, so stay tuned for future updates on that front.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to turn our attention to something that's been on my mind. The introduction of public squads has the potential to significantly impact the power dynamics in Arena.
Absolutely. Will established alliances continue to dominate, or will public squads empower smaller alliances and solo players to challenge the status quo?
It's a question that's on everyone's mind, and only time will tell how it all plays out. But one thing's for sure, Arena is about to get a whole lot more interesting.
It's a time of change, opportunity, and endless possibilities. So embrace the challenge. Commanders experiment with new strategies, forge powerful alliances, and show the galaxy what you're made of.
And most importantly, have fun.
Well said.
After all, that's what gaming is all about.
Now, for those of you who can't wait to dive into the action, remember that the blog post is available on the Star Trek Fleet Command website.
Be sure to check it out for all the juicy details. It's packed with information.
And it's well worth a read. And of course, be sure to follow Dr. Iron Chef on Twitch and subscribe to Aloha Dis on YouTube for more in-depth analysis and discussion on these new Arena features.
Mahalo for joining us. We've covered a lot of ground already, but I think it's important to kind of zoom out and look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, what's the overall narrative here, the so what of all these changes?
Well, it seems to me that the developers are trying to breathe new life into Arena, make it more dynamic and engaging, and ultimately more fun for everyone.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. The introduction of public squads, the adjusted ops level, ranges, the potential for facing alliance mates, it all adds up to a more unpredictable and exciting Arena experience.
Exactly. And by encouraging player feedback, they're essentially saying, we want this to be a collaborative process. Let's work together to make Arena the best it can be.
I like that. That's a really refreshing approach.
It shows that they're listening to the community.
Right.
And they genuinely care about creating a positive and engaging gaming experience.
Yeah, it's a far cry from the days of developers dictating changes from on high.
This feels much more like a partnership between the developers and the players.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so exciting. We're not just passively consuming content, we're actively shaping the future of the game.
Now, let's talk about some of the potential implications of these changes. For starters, I think we could see a surge in player activity in Arena.
Oh yeah, for sure. With the promise of more balanced matches and the opportunity to team up with a wider variety of players, I think a lot of commanders who might have been discouraged by the current Arena system will be eager to jump back in.
And that increased activity could lead to a more vibrant and competitive Arena scene overall.
Absolutely. We might even see the emergence of new strategies and tactics as players experiment with different squad compositions and playstyles.
It's going to be fascinating to watch how the meta evolves, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see some unexpected surprises along the way.
I'm already picturing some underdog public squads taking down established alliances. The potential for upsets is huge.
Speaking of alliances, I think these changes could have a profound impact on alliance dynamics.
Oh, absolutely. The possibility of facing alliance mates in Arena is a game changer. It raises so many questions.
Like, will alliances encourage friendly competition?
Yeah, or will they try to avoid conflicts of interest?
Will we see the rise of Arena specialists within alliances, commanders who focus specifically on excelling in this game mode?
And how will alliance leadership navigate the complexities of public squads? Will they encourage members to participate, or will they try to maintain control over their rosters?
These are all valid questions, and I don't think there are any easy answers. It's going to be up to each alliance to figure out what works best for them.
It's going to be a period of adaptation and experimentation, but I think that's what makes it so exciting. We're entering uncharted territory, and the possibilities are endless.
One thing's for sure, the lines between alliances are going to become a lot blurrier.
Yeah, with public squads, you might end up fighting alongside commanders from rival alliances one day and against them the next.
It's a whole new level of complexity, and it's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out.
It's almost like the developers are intentionally shaking things up,
Yeah.
forcing players to reevaluate their alliances and allegiances.
And who knows, it might even lead to the formation of new alliances based purely on shared Arena goals and strategies.
That's a really interesting thought. Imagine alliances forming not based on geographical location or shared history, but solely on a shared passion for arena dominance.
It's a whole new way of thinking about alliances, and it's just one of the many potential outcomes of this update.
Now, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the technical side of things we've already touched on, the ops level changes. But I want to dive a bit deeper into the potential implications.
By all means, lead the way.
So the shift to a ±4 ops level range is clearly aimed at creating more balanced matches. But I'm curious to see how it will impact different playstyles and fleet compositions.
That's a great point. For example, players who have traditionally focused on building overpowered fleets might find themselves at a disadvantage in this new system.
Yeah, exactly. Because even if their fleet is technically stronger, they'll still be matched against opponents within a relatively tight ops level range.
Which means that strategy and tactical skill will become even more important.
Absolutely. It's no longer just about brute force. It's about knowing how to effectively counter your opponent's fleets and exploit their weaknesses.
This could lead to a resurgence of certain ship types or strategies that might have fallen out of favor in the current meta.
Like, for example, ships that are particularly effective at disabling or controlling enemy ships might become more valuable.
Exactly, because they can help to even the odds against a stronger fleet.
And we might also see a greater emphasis on fleet versatility.
Players might start building fleets that can adapt to different situations and opponent compositions rather than just focusing on one specific strategy.
It's all about being prepared for anything.
And that's what makes this update so exciting. It's not just a simple change to the rules, it's a fundamental shift in the way Arena is played.
It's going to force players to rethink their strategies, their fleet compositions, and even their alliances.
And those who are able to adapt quickly will be the ones who thrive in this new era of Arena.
It's survival of the fittest Star Trek fleet command style.
And with so much at stake, the competition is sure to be fierce.
Now, let's talk about another aspect of the update that I think is particularly interesting. The potential for future improvements.
Ah, yes. The tantalizing hints dropped by Liam in the blog post.
He specifically mentioned the speed cap as an area they're looking at.
For those who might not know, the speed cap limits how quickly ships can move in Arena.
It's a controversial feature, with some players arguing that it creates an artificial limit on tactical possibilities.
And others arguing that it's necessary to prevent certain ships or strategies from becoming too dominant.
It's a delicate balancing act, and it's clear that the developers are aware of the complexities.
The fact that they're actively considering changes to the speed cap suggests that they're committed to making Arena as balanced and engaging as possible.
And it's not just about the speed cap. Liam also hinted at other potential improvements down the line.
He didn't go into specifics, but he did say that they're constantly looking for ways to enhance the Arena experience.
Which is really encouraging. It shows that they're not just resting on their laurels, they're actively trying to make Arena the best it can be.
And with such a dedicated development team behind it, I have no doubt that Arena will continue to evolve and improve in the months and years to come.
It's an exciting time to be an Arena commander, and I can't wait to see what the future holds.
Me neither. But for now, let's shift our focus back to the present. We've talked a lot about the potential implications of this update, but I think it's important to remember that it's still in the testing phase.
That's right. The EU server test is crucial.
It's an opportunity for players to get hands-on experience with the new features and provide valuable feedback to the developers.
And that feedback will play a vital role in shaping the final version of the update.
So if you're on an EU server, make sure to participate in the test and share your thoughts with the developers.
Your input can make a real difference.
And even if you're not on an EU server, you can still stay informed and engaged by reading the blog post, joining the official Discord server, and following the discussions online.
It's a great way to stay up to date on all the latest developments and share your own perspectives.
And who knows, you might even pick up some valuable insights or strategies from other players.
Now, before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, I want to circle back to something we discussed earlier. The potential impact of these changes on the overall Arena meta.
It's the question on everyone's mind. Will public squads shake things up, or will established alliances continue to dominate?
It's impossible to say for sure, but I do think it has the potential to create a more level playing field.
Especially for newer players or those in smaller alliances.
Exactly. Public squads give them a chance to team up with stronger commanders and compete at a higher level.
And with the adjusted ops level ranges, matches are likely to be more balanced and competitive overall.
Which means that skill and strategy will become even more important.
So while established alliances might still have an advantage in terms of coordination and experience, I think we could see some surprises.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see some underdog public squads making their mark on the arena leaderboard.
It's going to be a wild ride.
And I, for one, can't wait to see how it all unfolds.
Me neither. But for now, let's take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment to wrap up our deep dive and share some final thoughts.
Okay, Commanders, we're back ready for the final part of this deep dive into the new arena changes.
Lot to unpack.
There is, yeah. We've covered public squads, ops level adjustments, potential impacts on alliances, and the overall arena meta. But before we go, I want to leave you with a few key takeaways and maybe some food for thought.
Okay, sounds good to me.
So first and foremost, I think it's important to emphasize that these changes are a big deal.
Yeah, this isn't just some minor tweak. This has the potential to fundamentally alter the arena landscape.
And that's why it's so exciting.
We're like on the cusp of a new era for arena.
It's a chance for players to shake things up,
Yeah.
experiment with new strategies, forge new alliances, and prove their worth on a more level playing field.
And that brings me to my second takeaway. Embrace the change. Don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Try out public squads, experiment with different fleet compositions, see how you stack up against the competition.
Yeah, you might surprise yourself.
You might discover a whole new way to play the game.
My final takeaway is a bit more philosophical.
I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
I think these changes reflect a broader trend in gaming,
Okay.
a shift towards more community-driven development.
You're right. We're seeing more and more developers actively soliciting feedback from players.
Right.
And incorporating that feedback into their games.
It means that players have a real voice in shaping the games they love.
It creates a sense of partnership between the developers and the community.
And that partnership can lead to amazing things. Just look at what we're seeing with these arena changes. It's a direct result of player feedback.
Right.
And the developer's willingness to listen.
Absolutely. So my message to all the commanders out there is this. Make your voices heard.
Share your thoughts, your ideas, your concerns with the developers. They're listening.
They want to make this game the best it can be.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to pose a final question to our listeners.
All right, hit me.
Something to ponder as
Yeah.
we warp out of here.
With the introduction of public squads and the adjusted ops level ranges, how do you think the definition of skill in arena will change?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Will it become more about individual prowess, or will teamwork and coordination become even more crucial?
And will we see the rise of specialized arena roles like we see in other competitive games?
It's a question that only time will answer, but it's definitely something to think about as we head into this new era of arena.
All right, Commanders, be sure to follow Dr. Iron Chef on Twitch and subscribe to Aloha Dis on YouTube for all the latest Star Trek Fleet Command content.
Mahalo for joining us.
And may your arena battles be ever in your favor.